Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Off the Record. Today we are with Mr. Guy Richman.
Hi there.
And are you ready to get straight into it?
Dive on in.
Okay, question number one.
Yeah.
Who are you and what do you do?
I am a constantly aspiring musician and I play drums. If the two can be connected, yeah.
Okay, question number two. Where did it all begin? Where was the beginning for you?
Where was the beginning? Ooh. My earliest memory was when I was about 6 or 7. And at that time, television was in its infancy. Just goes to show my age. But there was an awful lot of live music on TV, like big band concerts, a lot of big band stuff, Count Basie, Frank Sinatra. Oscar Peterson had his own TV show then with special guests. That was a late night on a Friday night, which I used to get permission to stay up for. My dad, although he was an electrician, was also a piano accordionist as a hobby.
Oh, wow.
He obviously saw a really keen interest from me in music. Because it probably wasn't interested in anything else, it was because of that focus. So he essentially got me into a music school. It was a standard comprehensive that professional musicians used to go to on a Saturday, both for written theory and for the instrument, all free of charge. But us, as well as the pros, came down and did that. And here I am. Still trying to make a living.
Yeah, and how did it go from being that 6-year-old into physically getting a kit, becoming, playing, moving through the ranks?
The catalyst was my dad said to me in that kind of viewing period. He said, "Would you like to play an instrument?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." He said, "What would you like to play?" I said, "Drums." And he asked me why. And I said, "It's the only thing I can hear." Probably because it was the loudest thing coming out of the TV speaker. But I think that what that really meant to him was, that was my focus. I was just completely drawn to that and shutting everything else out.
Yeah.
Then I went into that. He obviously did his research without internet and called friends, found out somewhere for me to learn. I went and did that, and he literally pushed me into the theory class every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. And I was like, "Oh, Dad, do I have to?" "Yes, you need to learn to read music." Thank God he did.
I know.
It's been an asset as much as it can be a hindrance in some ways, but I'm glad he pushed me through that door. But I loved it. And then I went through that school every Saturday from the age of 7 till about 15, going through the various band stages. They had the junior band, which is all basically grade 1 associated board, or maybe 2. So it was all very simple music. Every level of orchestra had its relative kind of difficulty. So it was junior band, then it was the junior orchestra, then it was the senior orchestra, and then the highest accolade there at the time was the school dance band, as it was. You were playing Neil Hefti charts, Sammy Nestico, and loads of others, but all kind of, Glenn Miller right the way through to eventually playing even Don Lewis charts.
Wow.
Really badly, but we were playing Don Lewis. In fact, we played them as badly as some of them were written. Because my very first, and I'll tell you why. This is not being glib or big-headed in any way. I was amazing because I had one note to play the whole fucking time. I was on stage for about 40 minutes with the junior band, and I had to play triangle. And the reason I was amazing is I counted every bar right, and I played my one note on the triangle in the place I had to.
Oh, amazing. Do you know what, it's always that thing when you're in a percussion section and you end up having that problem of, like, there's 8 or 9 people and one person's on triangle or on bass drum, and he utters the words, "Do you know where we are?" it's always a dangerous thing because everyone else goes, oh, it's all right. Oh, yeah, I know where you are. I'll tell you where to play. Right, let's go for the piano moment. Okay, here we go. 3, 4, bang.
There's no shame in that.
No.
At least it still tells everybody you're interested.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming into the wrong place and not asking the question. Yeah.
Oh, it's genius. Okay, cool. So let's move on to question number 3. Who or what was your biggest inspiration?
Whoa, that's a really hard one. But you're not specifically talking about drummers, you're talking about anything.
Anything you want, mate.
I have to say that my biggest inspirations, with plural, have been drummers, without a doubt. I mean, without name dropping, I remember I did that Rhythm magazine interview all those years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of repeating myself from that in a way, but one of the biggest influences was the Carpenters had a TV show at the time. They were that big. They even had their American TV show on in England. As I remember, at prime time telly, around about 9 o'clock at night. It was, I was, 7, 8, I guess, 9 even. And it was a feature which I think is actually on YouTube. I've seen it on YouTube. And it's a clip of Karen Carpenter. It's like a 5-8 minute feature with her and the band on stage. Obviously something her brother's written, I think. It might have been a famous American piece. I can't remember, to be honest. And she just jumps. 1 minute she's doing a solo on like 4 concert songs. Next thing she's on the kit. Then she's on bongos. As simple as it was back then. But I remember watching that. And I think even my dad scraped my jaw off the floor then. Because obviously I grew up in a very male-dominated world, which is predominantly still is. But, you know, as various girlfriends have always told me, hey, we're just women living in a man's world. You know what I mean? But to see a woman playing drums, it was unheard of. It was because there was all that masculinity associated with it. You know, drummers were strong and could hit hard, and women were petite and in the kitchen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Horrible mentality that even exists today. She was probably one of the biggest, I'd say. Beyond that, roughly at the same time, and I have to mention him because I was listening to him this morning, and in this lockdown situation we're in, I'll be very honest with everybody who watches it. I've been up and down like a yo-yo emotionally with all of this. You know, worry, positivity, back to worry, back to, oh, how's that person getting on? What's happening to her? What about them? You know, that whole thing of disassociation of society, because we, human species, we're social. And here we are being forced into not being social.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was just mentioned the other day on the radio, and I didn't bear it any thought really. I'm digressing slightly, but it was like, so what music are you listening to? And then there was this idea of a company, they wanted to get everybody involved, donate 50p and say what your song is, your lockdown song that gives you the hope that we're going to come out of this soon. To raise money for the NHS. And I didn't give it much thought at the time. Then I spent about 2 hours yesterday afternoon going, what would I actually listen to? You know what we're like.
Yeah.
So much music at our fingertips and such a history of buying music. So my point being, Ed Green.
Okay.
I put Barry White on. I had it on for 2 hours this morning, and it's the broadest Cheshire Cat smile on my face for quite some time, I'll be honest. Because my mum was a massive fan of Barry White. She'd always, when my dad was at work, she'd almost blow the hi-fi up. She'd crank it right up, grab me off the sofa, all embarrassed because she wants me to dance with her. And that's all we listened to. It was Diana Ross, Barry White.
Yeah, but that Diana Ross album that you gave me, Baby It's Me, I mean, it is, with Toto, I mean, it's still one of my favourites.
It's sublime, isn't it? It really is.
I mean, you don't realise it is freaking Toto as the band.
Yeah, which is started because they were all on loads of sessions together and thought, hey, we get on great, let's make a band. And the rest is history. But that other great sideline and talent of what session musicians are is that they are so at the top of their game, technically, musically, because time is money, and they're basically coming and they play it down once and then the light goes on. Yeah. You know, Ralph's a great, what's the word I'm looking for? A great example of that, as is Ian Thomas, Steve Pearce, all those top guys in London. They just go in and no pressure and they just do it, you know. And you listen to those albums and you think, these guys sound like they've been playing together for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Some have only met the week before, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's crazy that, I mean, you look, I remember doing the Earth, Wind and Fire thing with Neil Wilkinson.
Yeah.
He was going to do one gig, I was doing another, and we were sat there in rehearsals, and he had this click on the floor, like a really old school box metronome, not an app on the phone, just a box, you know, and he just puts it on, and I can't even remember the cheer. What's the one that goes gum gum ba 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 ba?
Here, bum bum bum. That's all I need. In the Stone. Yeah.
There you go, In the Stone. So he put that
on CBS.
Yeah, he's just basically put it on, and he's just playing, grooving along. And then, like, maybe 2 minutes in, I literally, like, put the metronome on, and it's flashing, and he's on it. Hasn't moved. He has not moved, and he can't hear it, but he just hasn't moved. And I was just like, and then it was the case of, okay, Ryan, your turn.
What was this with the Ultimate Earth, Wind and Fire? Pete Beatrice. Yeah.
And I just wanted to go make him a cup of coffee, really.
That's all.
A bit shaky.
Whereas now, having all the chops is companies hopefully investing in you on your Instagram page or your social media page to earn you money. And that whole concept for me, and I'm not putting those guys down, they're brilliant at what they do. What I struggle with is the fact that's not music. That's just running a business. That's not music.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I won't do that, because that's not the way. I can't change 37 years of professionalism and go into that. And I don't really like playing solos anyway. So I've got, as that's not what I do, and that's not what I'm going to do either. I want to play in bands, and I want to be in front of an audience and be part of something that makes that audience happy. That's the most important thing to me, as well as the musical adulation I take from it. You know, 1, 2, D, ba ba bum, and the bass player might go 1, 2, D, ba 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 bum at the same time. And you look at each other and go, "Fucking hell, yeah!" That's what you got on stage, because you're both in exactly the same moment at the same time, but that's not on the chart. You're doing that on your head, and you just feel each other to be able to play the same thing at the same time without any prompting from anywhere. That's one in golf for me.
But it's feeling it, isn't it? I mean, okay, cool. Let's move on to question number 4.
10 questions in that last statement. Brilliant. I think we answered about 19 questions in that one piece of time.
That's the way it goes, mate. That's the way it goes. Okay, cool. Question number 4. What job would you have had if you were not in the entertainment industry?
I'm going to adapt your question slightly. And what job would you have loved to have done had you have not been in the industry?
Okay.
Pilot. I want to be a commercial pilot. There you go, you too. So then at that time, when I was about 15, and we'd gone into the last 2 years of school, 14 through 16, it became very evident from the careers officer that I was never going to achieve it just because of my grades. Mm-hmm. They wanted physics at S level and a combination of chemistry and something else, probably biology in a sense, I guess. I can't quite remember. But as soon as he told me, that was it. My heart sank.
Oh, mate.
I've been told off so much in so many classes for playing drums on the stalls in all the physics and chemistry classes. I figured that maybe I should be a drummer. At least someone's sitting up and listening.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least I can annoy someone for the rest
of it. Richman, shut up! Sorry, sir.
It was the same, though. I mean, I really wanted to be a pilot, but because I have flat feet, I couldn't get into... I really wanted to go into the RAF and do it that way because of, you know, being taught from a military background, you know?
I think at the time, for me, obviously there was an element of sponsorship from the airlines, but their contribution was probably less than your parents make. I think to join British Airways, once you'd been accepted, they had to come up with something like $2,000 a year for the 5-year course, a 4-year training course. And So that was probably tantamount to, I don't know, 30 or 40 grand a year now.
Mm-hmm.
I've come from a working class background. That was never going to happen. So had I even have been intelligent enough, I probably would have had to have gone down the route that you were thinking through the RAF, which is obviously paid for by the government.
Yeah, of course. That's what I really wanted to do, but unfortunately, because of flat feet, it just wasn't really an option for me now.
My situation as well, I probably would have failed the medical. So
yeah, interesting. Okay, question number 5. So I'm just going to give you a disclaimer before I ask you this.
Bollocks to that.
Yeah. So basically, I was asked this question in an interview recently, and I was stumped. I'd never been asked it before. It was asked to me by someone that wasn't a musician at all.
Right.
So this is question number 5. Where is the rhythm, and where does it come from?
Rhythm is life. Even the way the rhythmicality of the way you say a sentence. My name is Guy Richman. My name is Guy Richman. It's rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And where does it come from? Yeah, it starts with your heart beating, probably when you're a fetus.
Okay.
Say, whenever you go out and walk with the headphones on, you invariably, if you have a concept of time, which I'm sure most people that watch this do, you even start walking or you'll jog in time with the music if you're jogging.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I'd go out and play things, and I was on every beat of the bar, every beat in the bar, walking along. If it was too slow, you couldn't. Or if it was too fast, you were running. But if it was around 110, anything from 90 to maybe even 120, I'd always find myself walking to every beat in every bar in time. You're listening to trains on the track. Dugga-da-da, dugga-da-da, dugga-da-da. It has meter. So there is always meter in life. I obviously had a conception of rhythm venturing into music, probably more than some people would. But even before, that was happening before, because obviously I was dancing with my mum at a young age, and I was not a beatless boy. I wasn't John Travolta, but I wasn't a beatless boy. So there's some kind of inherency to probably to genealogy, passed down through the genes.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was musical. My mum played piano until she was about 5. And then there was a death in the family, so they couldn't afford to pay for her lessons anymore. So she stopped early on, but we don't know how that works, do we? We don't know how that is passed. Always born talented. We don't really understand what that's all about. But yeah. I'd like to believe that there is some concept. Look at evolution. A bird is born in a nest. It has to learn how to jump out. Well, not that we don't know that bird talk is their version of what we're doing now. Converse. Mm-hmm. Highly unlikely that they converse. When you're born, you don't know when you're hungry. You just know you're hungry because it's working. But that's all information and code that's passed down from the two people that created you in the first place.
So what about when people say oh, I don't have any rhythm, or for me, I always say and again, from what you said, not coming across as big-headed or egotistical, my rhythm is impeccable. I know that from the years of playing and doing it at a high level. I know it is, in the same respect that a computer programmer's skills of a computer should be impeccable. It is what it is. But my point is it something that you can teach people, or is it we all have it built into us? Is it something that if somebody doesn't quite have it, can you nurture it out of them, or do certain people have it more than others?
Absolutely, but it's a double-edged sword. People say, I'm completely beatless. I can't dance. I've got no rhythm. That's their perception of just because they can't dance in time. What is dancing? If someone throws their arms and kicks their legs about and shakes their head in a non-sensible fashion, some people might see that as dancing. It's all about perception, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But people naturally attain that to, I've got no rhythm. I've got no sense of rhythm. Everybody's got rhythm. It's just whether you're able to accept the fact that you can learn that or not. I've known a choir master of a very good. It's the mother of a very good bass player friend of mine, who shall remain nameless because he plays with very high-profile artists. She used to run a choir for basically mentally affected people, people with mental disability, and they couldn't pitch for toffee. But she found a system and a way to teach them to sing in tune. Mm-hmm. And so if they haven't got the self-conscious way of working out, oh, actually, maybe I can sing, but they were still singing in tune by the end of the structure of courses that she did. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a cognitive skill. It helped them with other skills in their life that they were trying to develop as well.
Okay, question number 6. This is going to be a tricky one for you because you've done a lot. What is your career highlight and why? And why did you choose it? What makes it so special?
Right, say again.
What is your career highlight and what makes it so special?
Bloody hell, that's a tough one. Mm-hmm. They all, not all of them, but a lot of them mean big things for different reasons. Mm-hmm. So to actually think of one in particular is very hard. I think without sounding starstruck, one of the highlights was the realization that I'd kind of made it because I was playing with someone big, was doing a festival in Germany with Boyzone, and then this big entourage of limousines turn up and it's Michael Jackson. And I'm like, fuck, I'm on the same venue as Michael Jackson. That was a big moment.
Yeah.
1999, 98, something like that.
Wow.
And that was that is quite starstruck actually, isn't it? I guess there's nothing wrong with that. But even just, I think again the most powerful thing for me, apart from coming off a stage and going, bloody hell, we played great. But being on a stage when you've got 80,000 people out in front of you, or 125, which was in Hyde Park, and you walk on stage and see the enormity of that, that's inspiring in itself. You know, the fact that you can be part of that is a quite humbling experience.
Because I still would love for you to get recorded and put out somewhere those videos of you playing for Boyzone. Was it Boyzone or was it Westlife?
I did. A friend of mine in Ireland actually recorded me from the rear for the whole gig. He just had it because I used to come out on a lower level of the stage, not on the lower level, on the stage, not on a riser. And I had to come through a black drape, like a black cloth. And he just set his tripod up with a video camera, not a digital recorder, a videotape camera. We set it all up at sound check and recorded the whole gig, which I've got. Unfortunately, there's loads of dropouts on it, but I'll put it up some way, somehow, sometime.
It's so good. I mean, even that, you know, like that the beginning of the video is like I think he must have pressed record and then waited for the gig to begin, and there's 15 minutes of pure screaming.
Yeah.
All you can hear from behind the black cloth in front of you and on stage and behind is just pure screaming. It is the camera's distorting, and then you get that first moment of just like that fill, that from picture of you, that go boom, and it's just gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, the screaming goes up about 30 dB as well. Which I wasn't prepared to play every gig with a gated 80s tom sound. No. Didn't want any gates on the tom, so I had to drive the headphones that loud to just generally get over everything that was going down my mics, including, most importantly, all of that screaming for hours.
Yeah, it's incredible. Those videos are really special, man. Like, you should really get those out there, because
don't get me wrong, I'm really privileged. I just find it, I laugh at it because it's so archaic, and all the video dropout and the
yeah,
the tape mechanism's not particularly in good shape and stuff.
yeah.
Kind of comedy now, but it's also a bit embarrassing as well. But I'll get it up on a YouTube channel.
And kids will not understand the process of that little cog at the bottom of a video recorder that you use to adjust the tracking.
Yeah. And if you don't put a little alcohol on a bit of bud and clean it off, it gets all the residue from the tape on it and starts to do funny things. And mechanic.
Or rewinding it with a pencil, rewinding the tape back with a pencil.
3 hours doing that, but you just can't get that final twist out of it.
Annoying. Anyway, right, okay, here we go to the next question. This is question number 7. So obviously you've been a drummer for such a long time, but you also do production, producing, things like that. What you can answer this from either point, so from a drummer's point or from production point. What is your process when preparing for a project, and where do you start?
The things I've done for you are a lot easier because you know what you want and you've sent me a drum chart. Mm-hmm. So my process really, from that perspective, as a preface, is, and especially as we've done that remotely, you don't have the luxury of being in the same room with you, or the producer or the musical director or the artist, and say, okay, that doesn't make sense. What do you mean by that? And trying to get that further information from people, which you could do instantly when you're in the same room. Because you're ultimately, it's time, isn't it? It's time. The lockdown thing's a bit easier because you can go back and repair stuff because of blah, blah, blah. But when it's that live element, it's always about how much is needed of me. Do I embellish anything? Always look at when I look at a chart, I'm always looking for that dark area where all the flies have coagulated and managed to feed off something. That's always my point of reference. If it's dark, it means it's probably complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Because let's face it, drum music isn't the greatest thing in the world for people that don't know how to write drum music. So,
especially when it comes off of a piano score, it always looks nothing like what we want to see.
Yeah. And again, they don't feel that they need to put that amount of information. Well, they probably don't, in fairness, because, you know, you've got to put every piano note on that piece of music for it to be played. Whereas they kind of trust your methodology of learning to play a drum kit. You are going to play a drum kit a certain way from the off until they tell you not to. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to have all that major embellishment unless you're phrasing with the band. So I'm always looking for that dark spot at the beginning. I always try, now that my ego has been satiated, to try and play the piece as authentically for the period it was written in. Should it be written for they want a 60s style rock and roll? And then the question being, do you want me to tune the drums up and make them quite high pitched, a bit slightly post jazz, but with a bit more ring? And generally the answer to that is no. I don't think anybody's ever said, actually, that's a great idea, would you do that? But for me, they're things you need to know. How authentic do you want this to be? Do you want this hip hop? Do you want the snare drum a bit later than the hi-hat so it's slamming? Do you want that kind of R&B hip hop culture behind it, which is very hard? That is a culture, that. Do you want this more swing beat, or do you actually want it or do you want it you know, all those questions have to come out.
And generally those things,
where you go, oh, actually it's just this.
Yeah, but generally also those things are very much like from what it was like being in a band. You know, you used to get into a room together and you would try things, and you would try this and try that, and then you'd go, actually, do you know what, I'm going to go to the right here, or they go, no, why don't you go to the floor tom here? All those things.
At that level, there was time for pre-production.
Yeah.
if it was with a rhythm section and a full orchestra, at least the MD would probably have, you know, a couple of days in the rehearsal room with the rhythm section, because he knows if the rhythm section's got it right, then the rest of the orchestra are going to just sit on that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to take a 60, 80 musicians into a rehearsal room for 2 days, because that's very expensive. So at least the rhythm section right, you're halfway there, you know.
But that's also the reason why generally MDs will have their own rhythm section that they will use for a long period of time. You know, they will, but especially that relationship between drummer and MD.
Yeah. It has a very personal value as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
It's a trust thing. Okay, cool. So moving on to question number 8. This is quite an interesting one. What was the biggest obstacle you've ever had to overcome in your career, and how did you overcome it?
In my career?
Yeah.
Oh, the biggest obstacle? Confidence. That's probably the biggest obstacle.
Okay.
My confidence spoke through my instrument. As a person, I've not been one to... People might think I'm really confident, but I always doubted myself. Could I have done that better? Or maybe I shouldn't have played that fill there. Maybe I was overthinking that, you know, all those kind of processes. Especially when you're not working much, like everybody, our confidence gets a knock. Mm-hmm. And you have to, that's probably the biggest obstacle, and that's still ongoing. How to remain confident and believe in yourself when things aren't going the way you want them to, especially at those times. Mm-hmm. Like now, I'm very worried about the state of our business and where it might go. But my optimism will say it'll bounce back. After the people need entertaining after things like this. It just might take longer than we'd like it to.
Well, I think our industry, is in the live sector of our industry, will be one of the last ones to go back.
With pretty much like 9/11, our industry was the first to suffer and the last to recover, because people were afraid to travel. Mm-hmm. And people were scared to go out, not knowing when the next bomb would go off. So the entertainment business really took a hit then. Mm-hmm. But of course, it's a similar parallel to this, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've all been tested, and you know you're clear, and that can actually unequivocally tell us that, you know, the virus is dead until probably next winter, when it will be back again, like the flu virus. Mm-hmm. Only then are we going to relax it. So certainly by the end of the year, you know. Sorry, people, if that's scary, but I can't.
No, it's what's, you know, been coming out, I think. But I think going back to the whole confidence thing, I think it's one of those situations where everybody has their own way of dealing with it, don't they? Some people go into a shell. Some people throw themselves into unnecessary things like workloads or how do you, as much as it's not something that you can overcome, how do you like deal with it? What do you do to try and focus your confidence in an upward stroke instead of it being a downward thing?
Well, now that I've progressed to taking the plunge on a really up-to-date, fantastic piece of kit like the Roland kit, and marrying that with superior drummer, to being able to trigger beautifully recorded drums from that and do remote sessions, it's given me something else to focus on. Mm-hmm. I need to learn that software, and I'm learning it very gradually, but I'm learning it, you know, because obviously we all want to kind of increase our workflow. So that's been very important for me. And as you know, I love being in the sun, as you can probably tell with a few little lines from yesterday. Sun's out. And I tell you one other thing I've been doing, although to be fair to everybody that might watch this, it's not your fault. It's the fact I just have a genuine interest, obviously, having had both parents go through the Second World War as kids. I always try, in my dark moments, I try and watch stuff of that time, like real footage of what that time was, interviews, because it's those, or even people that are suffering disability, and you think to yourself, well, you know, there go the grace of I, you know, what am I worried about? These people live with that every day, and here I am having to deal with lockdown. So it puts everything in perspective. You know, I think that's. I really hope the world will be a bit more sharing and caring after this. It probably will for a while, but it will go back to its old ways, because it always has after something as globally monstrous as this, and 9/11 and stuff before that. You know, world wars. Because you think everybody loved their neighbour and they trusted their neighbour, because if a bomb dropped on your house, you were relying on the neighbours you knew very well either side to come and pull you out.
Yeah, of course.
A slightly different scenario, but the world has changed. The world has changed since then, I find real value in just seeing my neighbours. If I sit out on the stairs in the morning and have a coffee when the sun's out, which I did this morning, two neighbours that I didn't really know very well, and I just said to this woman, I said, "Are you coping all right?" She went, "Not really." I went, "Come on, the sun's out. Go and get your bikini on." And she laughed her head off, you know. So, whereas probably prior to this, it would have been, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're all craving that engagement as well. So, for me, that's positive and positive.
So, question number 9. This is a really, this is an interesting one for me. You're going to host a dinner party for 5 people, right? Yeah. Who would they be? And who would you give the last piece of pie to?
Bloody hell. 5 people.
Yeah, and they can be friends, family, they can be dead, alive, famous, whatever you want.
The Elephant Man.
Okay.
Gandhi. Oscar Peterson. Probably Elvis, actually.
Okay.
That's a tough one. I'm trying to pull it out the hat very quickly here, but these are the first people that are inspirations over life that are coming to mind. The last person, Margaret Thatcher.
Okay, and who would?
And I choose Margaret Thatcher because she definitely wouldn't be getting the last piece of the pie. So that narrows down my options to 4.
No, I'd tell her that the pie's been privatised. That's what I'd do.
Or I'd say, "Sorry, Maggie, all the mines are open again."
Yeah, exactly. But who would you give the last piece of pie to, and why?
Me. I'm the most important thing. Who cooked in the fucking first place? Mate, I'm having the pie.
That's really honest.
I don't know. I'd have to ask them who wants the pie. I wouldn't have a favourite. I wouldn't have a favourite. You know me. I don't know. So I wouldn't have a favourite. I'd probably give them an equal piece of a very big slice of pie.
Yeah, I think that's important. Okay, question number 10. This one's quite nice. What is your favourite country or city that you visited, and what was it that took you there?
Well, my favourite city is New York. And what took me there was always having a fascination of going there, and my dad went there a lot when he was in the Merchant Navy. So as a child, there was always these guys out taking photographs of the ships as they came in. Mm-hmm. They'd run down to the port and they'd sell them. They'd go home and print them all off and then sell them to the crew to make a living. Mm-hmm. So, and he showed me all these old black and whites of being up the Empire State, and this is pre-World Trade Center. This is back in the late 50s. Mm-hmm. So I was always drawn to those photographs and never went to New York until I was 18, between 18 and 19. And I flew there on my own.
Wow.
Easy to think back to it, but I was only there to pick up a cruise ship. So I literally was there for one night and then I sailed out the next day. But that was, and again, I think those little things gave me this kind of almost pseudo infinity with it, really. Mm-hmm. But obviously, when I was growing up listening to music, I was listening to a lot of jazz, particularly jazz funk, soul, Motown. And in that kind of 70s through 80s, certainly up to the mid 80s kind of thing, or maybe early to mid 80s, the mecca of the session musician and all my idols, they were all based in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the catalyst, really. That was really my draw to it, And I couldn't wait to go to various clubs when I got there to hopefully see these people, because at that time they'd only come over to the country with select acts, because the Musicians Union made it very hard for them to get into the country on the basis of, we've got great musicians, use ours, but the Americans were even worse at treating us that way. So
yeah,
it was only major league artists that would come over with the likes of Gadd, Darryl Jones on bass, Hiram Bullock on guitar, Mike Stern on guitar when he was back in the session days. So that drew an infinity as well. I've got to get to New York. I've got to have to see these people before I can't do that anymore.
Because I remember Fraser Snell telling me that he was 17 and he just went to New York. He just went with a one-way ticket, and he basically went into a jazz bar and said to this bass guy, "Look, I will drive you around. I will carry your stuff. I'll be your general roadie. Can you give me somewhere to live and give me bass lessons?" And that's what happened.
All right. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how long he did it for, but it was a considerable period of time.
Wow. 3.5 days.
Yeah, exactly. But also you started obviously on the cruise ships as well, right? I mean, when you were young. I mean, how long did you spend doing that?
Yeah, I did 1.5 years on one ship. I think it was slightly more than that, actually. The timeline's a bit vague, but it was roughly about 1.5 years. And then I came off for about 3 or 4 months, and then got offered a job on another ship, which was the one I was talking about, how I had to fly out to New York to pick up the ship. Mm-hmm. And I think I did about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months on that as well. So that was a 2-year career.
Yeah, of course. And what was the level from going from like the cruise ships into theatre? How did that happen?
That didn't really happen. I did the cruise ship thing. Obviously, I was single. I was still living at home, 17. So overheads were never an issue. Supporting a property while I'm out of the country, or supporting a family while I'm. But when I got into doing the boy band, well, actually no, I scrubbed that, because I did Tommy in the West End at the Shaftesbury Theatre before doing the boy band thing.
Was that your first gig in theatre?
No, I depped on a show called Metropolis for Graham Ward.
Amazing drummer.
Yeah. And I can't remember what theatre that was at. I think it might be the Piccadilly, to be fair. And I was 19, so that would have been about 84, 85. Graham got me in again to do Hair when it first had its revival. Oof, that was kind of early 90s, I think, maybe about 90, 91. Mm-hmm. That was at the Old Vic. That was a stonking band, that was, blimey. And he never took a lot of time off. And the next thing I knew, I can't remember for the love of me, Ryan, who got me into it. I think it might have been Paul Moran, keyboard player. For Tommy, I got called to do the Tommy auditions. I think also at the time it was a kind of a quiet period, so I managed to get a few fixers numbers. Maurice Cambridge, Andy Barnwell. I didn't get Sylvia's. They were the only two I remember calling. There was Porter and Young. They were quite a big fixing duo at the time, but they'd never offered me any work. And it was, I've somehow, someone had, or one of those had referred me on and I got a call to go and audition for it. And I got it. And that point, I thought, well, what else do I know? Well, it's theatre. you know, I toured with a few acts way back, but of course they were getting a lot older and not touring as much. So then I got in touch with my son's godfather, Steve Price,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually went. I went for the audition. No, I didn't. That's a lie. I found out about the audition for Lion King.
This is what, like 99, 2000?
It's got to be something like that, isn't it? Yeah. I found out about Lion King. I'm not. My memory's terrible. I've got a feeling I might have still been doing the boy band thing at the time, and I couldn't actually. I wouldn't have been able to get to the audition. But in the meantime, I'd heard that a certain drummer had been given the nod and the wink anyway. So
Very, very big name.
very big name. So it was in the bag, but they had to be seen to be going through the motions. And then I phoned him, Steve's recommendation, and I started depping for him in 2002.
And that was, of course, Andy Newmark, who did Sly and the Family Stone and
Keith Richards, Roxy Music, you know, B-listers.
And then obviously had Thomas Diani up there on Perk.
Just something. It was like that man's like a bomb going off. It was quite incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you obviously went on to do Wicked after that.
Yeah.
But didn't you have a stint with like Boyzone or Westlife in between that?
Yes, I came out of Lion King in 2005 or 4. In this day and age, it's a couple of years ago, but actually in reality, it's like 5 years ago. It flies so fast, so timelines are hard for me. And then I got a call, would I be interested in doing Westlife? And I did a year with them, which was great. I enjoyed it. If I never play a ballad again, it would be too soon. But I love them, great guys. And then Wicked started. Well, in fact, we started rehearsing Wicked in July 2006, opened in September 2006. And then within a month of that opening, they asked me to go back and do another, like, I think it was about 3 or 4 months of touring sporadically. But the show wouldn't let me off because it was too soon. So I had to come back. Bye.
Because that was the time at like 2006, that September, that was how I got myself into the West End doing Daddy Cool.
Right.
And that was, I mean, I was very fortunate. I just dipped to Mamma Mia, but there was Wicked opened, Blue Man Group opened, Cabaret opened, Daddy Cool opened, Spamalot opened, Dirty Dancing opened. There were like 13 shows that opened within a period of a month. Yeah. And they basically run out of drummers. So that was why I got the call for Daddy Cool, was they run out. It was pretty incredible, actually.
Amazing, yeah.
You know, but then that's where you and I met, because I came in debt for you on Wicked once Daddy Cool had finished, which was the January of 2007.
Was it really?
Yeah. Wow. So we've known each other for 13 years.
You don't look a day over 6 years old.
Oh no, tell me about it. None of this grey here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is question number 11. What advice? I don't like the whole "what advice would you give to other people." What advice would you give to your younger self?
Take your time. Believe that you do have something to offer. And be nice to everybody. And if you don't like people, just keep away from them. If you haven't got anything good to say about someone, don't say anything.
I would agree with you.
That's my advice.
Okay, and the final question, which is not really a question, but it is. What is next for you? What are your plans? What have you got coming up? What do you have?
Well, as we all know, plans are really on the back foot, aren't they? The Darcy Oak tour obviously got postponed, so I'm hoping that might happen towards the end of the year, maybe early next year. As far as I know, I've got 3 weeks in Germany with the Temptations in October.
Mhm.
And I've spoken to the promoter about that. And as far as he's concerned, ticket sales are good. Obviously now they're relaxing their lockdown situation. Hopefully that may even go ahead.
Okay.
He wasn't as open to say that people have demanded refunds. So they're obviously, and last time we did it, it went down brilliantly. Everybody loved it. There was a fabulously positive German fan base going on out there. And really is to try and get the remote session thing up and running. As I say, I'm learning this software now and getting to grips with it. I've done a couple of things yesterday for Don Richardson. I've done drums on Pete Adams' stuff, for the stuff that he's putting up on his YouTube channel, Audio Satellite. Go and check that out. He's written some great stuff and it's recorded so well. So I'm hoping to get more work from home doing that.
Okay.
I need to start advertising, and I'm going to go to Media Donkeys and get their expert opinion on how to do that.
Yeah, I think so. And also, don't forget, we've got Deborah Sassen's albums to do.
Debbie's album, of course,
Yeah.
which is imminent, right?
Yeah, we should be starting to record that within the next couple of weeks.
For you, excellent. Yes, looking forward to that very much.
Anyway, thank you so much. And guys, this is who is going to be joining us next time.